Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Shay. Oh, man, I almost gave my other intro. This is Shay coming back at y'all with another episode of the Emmaus Proposition. Man, I hope y'all doing good. Hope this finds you well. Things are going just normal over here, man. So, as always, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you're watching this over on YouTube. If you listen on the podcast, thank y'all for the love, man. Yo, spread the word over there, man. We're going to keep these going. And today, I have my friend Troy that came over for a visit. Been trying to get Troy on for a minute, man. And finally got him over. Got the glass of sweet tea, just so y'all don't think I'm sipping on something. Hold on. Got the sweet tea going. And y'all saw by the title, we are going to be talking through Marvel.
And adjacent topics that come with
I was about to say, we've had, Troy's been over here for like a half hour already. We've already talked about, travel and politics and all kind of craziness, but we're going to settle in on Marvel, and we'll see where that conversation goes.
Sounds good.
And like always, man, over here on the Emmaus Proposition, we believe that absolutely everything ultimately leads back to Christ.
Amen.
And so it does not matter what we're talking about. Anything in all creation was from him and through him and to him. And so even something like Marvel. Y'all know I did the episode of the multiverse of madness, but we are going to dive deep because I'm not a comic book guy. Troy is he's more of a comic book guy than I am.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, man.
Sure.
What is it that you like about Marvel? Actually, you know what? Before you do that, tell the folks who you are, man. Tell them your pedigree.
Pedigree. So as Shay said, I'm Troy. My pedigree is just a lot of nerdy things. Played video games growing up as a kid, read comic books as a kid. Didn't really have a relationship with Jesus until I was 18, 19. So I had a deep established history of nerdy culture and now Jesus culture on top of that. And as I walked with Christ, I began to see that it's not just culture, it's identity and relationship, and it's kingdom-servant, kingdom-minded. And in that, I began to notice things apologetically, through Denny Daly and stuff like that. I began to learn how to take this unknown statue, like Paul did with Athens.
Yeah.
Take that unknown God and apply it to everything of the world and kind of pull the gospel from it and to bring the gospel to it. And I feel like it's always been kind of like a passion and a drive. I'm a huge music guy. When I was in my early 20s, I did a lot of touring, hardcore band here in Reno and really crappy venues along the West Coast and stuff like that.
Did you guys have competing bands? Because I know a lot of guys.
We played with the Waiting Inns from time to time, and we played with the Fall of Leviathan. We did shows with those guys.
Okay.
And then when we actually kind of mixed things up with Barcadia and the more straight edge militant, hardcore kids. And then after my early 20s, I kind of just went through a grown up phase where I just stopped doing things that I enjoyed and kind of went through like a plateau. And I just worked and tried to glorify Jesus in it, and I just got real bored in life. And then Marvel just kind of blew up. We had Iron Man and the Avengers and stuff like that, but something about Phase 2, Phase 3 just really roped me in.
Phase 2, Phase 3 was
Age of Ultron. And then going into Ant-Man.
Yeah, okay.
So
that's when it started getting. They started
nuts.
not necessarily changing the genre, but they were it almost like they were adding more humanness to it. So
yes.
Age of Ultron, I feel was really serious because that's when they introduced that was the catalyst for this
Sokovian Accords.
Yeah. I don't know what I was about to say.
Dude, you're good.
And then after that, so you had Guardians.
Which no one had an interest in at the point, and then suddenly everyone is dancing, listening to freaking 70s and 80s, singing "I Am Great." Oh, dude, yeah.
And suddenly we have a record. We have a record of that soundtrack.
I have it too. like I totally
like
understand.
vinyl. Like
Oh.
we got it on vinyl.
Oh, okay.
So we went.
You got your hipster cred.
Yeah. I did. I mean, I can't deny it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something cool, like it was like a turntable kind of thing, but
No,
it was.
hipsters have ruined everything.
They
so
have.
anything
They
cool
have. Can't
like that.
Pet your legs anymore. Now you can't even have a nice beard.
I know.
Lumberjack shirts.
Dude, tell me about it. The only thing I have going for me when it comes to like having a beard with a lumberjack shirt is I am just a little too fat to actually count as a hipster. Like I don't eat vegan. I don't
Yeah,
eat,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
You don't have special cigarettes that you roll
No.
yourself.
no. The most I'll touch every now and then is like backwoods. You know,
What's that?
it's a cigar.
Did
like
you say Backowitz?
backwoods.
Backwoods. Okay.
Backwoods sounds.
I'm like,
A little-
what is that?
That sounds a little like, Polish. Anyways,
super hipster.
yeah, bringing it back. So the Sokovia Accords
Yeah.
is actually kind of what began to really route me in. So with Ultron, a lot of just like Tony's idea about like all of his arc from Iron Man's 1 through 3
Yeah.
is him kind of coming to terms with, I'm not an egotist, I'm a hero. And what does it mean to be that hero? Well, it's like he starts getting into that Lethal Weapon, Riggs, Murtaugh, I'm getting too old for this crap.
Sure.
So because of that is when he's like, why don't we just put a shield around the planet?
Yeah.
And because of his hubris, because of Tony being Tony, is why from Age of Ultron, led to everything with Thanos
Absolutely.
and the Endgame, and like
Yeah.
you could even theorize, like there's theories out there from other like YouTubers and stuff that Ultron actually saw Thanos in a way, like he had a vision of Thanos, and that's why he thought, what was it? The theory is that Ultron wanted to not destroy Earth, but cripple it in such a way that it would manifest more heroes to be able to fight Thanos in the future. So that's like the running, like one of the big theories is it wasn't to completely obliterate, but it was to decimate, reduce to 10%.
You know what's sucky though? So by the time, and I'm super fast forwarding. By the time they get to the Eternals,
You hate the Eternals so much.
I really do. I honestly really do.
We can get into the Eternals, and I'll have that conversation.
Here's the thing, like that Thanos argument at that point would make a lot more sense. Like if Thanos is going to come and snap and deplete half it was the universe, right? It wasn't just Earth. It was everywhere.
All life, everywhere.
All life everywhere. If he's going to decimate half of it, then
we won't get into the logic of how it would only take 50 years to rebuild the population in a whole entire universe. Someone did the math, like logarithmically, of depleting the resources by 50%.
I'm not gonna offend people too hard when I say probably some of the wrong people get snapped away, and there's gonna be some birth issues that we're gonna have.
Yeah. Okay.
If breaking the fourth wall real quick, if you know what I mean. Anyway, Thanos was the hero then.
Yep.
Because he was actually stopping the Eternals. In theory,
Okay.
one could say he was stopping the Eternals from coming and destroying all of Earth.
So. This is where it gets super crazy. Do you want to know why, out of the 14 million different possibilities, Strange saw one? That one. That stupid little one. So this is another theory, but this is one of those theories that I actually have really latched onto as like canon.
Okay.
So
pause real fast. You can't say Marvel canon. You can't do that.
No? Why not?
Because they reset the timeline at a whim.
We'll talk about that too.
We will. Because there's no way you can say Marvel canon.
Okay.
They'll just create a new Earth.
Well,
and say, we're in the multiverse now.
Well,
there's no more canon.
We'll get to that, Shay. We'll get to that.
You're going to anger me. I feel it rising, Troy.
Hey, you wanted me on here to talk about Marvel, so you did this to yourself, dude. At out of all of the things that I really kind of get into is Marvel has been like a consistent draw. There's only one other thing that I like more than Marvel right now, but it's progressing so slowly that I'm just waiting for the next book to come out. I will not waste. I will not talk a lot of time about Stormlight Archive, but read the Stormlight Archives, man.
That's the one that you have that you're gaming on, right?
No.
What's the one that you're? Because you have like a whole
the
D&D gaming setup.
But
you're playing something that you were telling me about when I was over to your house.
Yeah, that was the Stormlight Archive. I do have so on my gaming setup. I do have like desktop backgrounds dedicated to it.
Okay,
but just check out Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. He's got his own like MCU thing going on with books. He's a phenomenal author. Little plug there. But so the thing that they don't mention during the Eternals, that whole plot takes place a whopping week after Thanos. Endgame.
Eternals?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just made me more upset. Because their excuse for that was...
Okay, hold on.
We weren't allowed.
Yes. So here's... Okay. To make you even more upset then.
Okay.
It takes place the week after the Eternals. Or the Eternals takes place the week after Endgame. So, the working theory that I have latched onto, because it just kind of makes sense, is because, you're right, Thanos was the good guy because he stops the Celestial from returning, but not really. Because the moment everyone gets snapped back, the convergence still happens, and the emergence still happens. Right?
Yeah.
What is the key thing that Salma Hayek's, I forget the name of her character because she really contributed very little to the story at the end of the day. I'm not a big fan of Eternals either, but there's still points to it. Her character basically said, if it wasn't for the fact that like Steve and Thor and Tony reversed everything, that humanity showed their strengths, it made her go, maybe there's worth interfering for. Maybe they're worth sacrificing and saving for. So here's where things get interesting. The theory is, when Strange was going through all those scenarios, he kept seeing Earth getting destroyed, Earth getting destroyed, Earth getting destroyed.
Okay.
But the one scenario where it didn't get destroyed was because of how they did all their time travel back to the future, tomfoolery, reverse the snap, save the day, and did so in such a way that even the Eternals, who apparently aren't living beings to where they never got snapped, witnessed the destruction and end of Thanos.
So you're saying Strange saw
the Eternals saving the Earth.
Saving the Earth.
Yes. And that was the actual endgame scenario. Is by them interfering in the way that they did, allowed the Eternals to suddenly give a rip about interfering.
Sure.
And that's how they stopped the Celestial baby from being born.
If that is what actually happened, that's a very better storyline than what they put forward.
Agreed. And that's why I'm latching on to it. Because again, okay, so I've said this before in conversation with you.
Yeah.
Eternals is... I tried so hard the first time I saw Eternals, because I've seen it twice now. Because I am one of...
Why would you do that to yourself?
Because I'm one of those people.
Okay.
I always do one look, and then like a while later I'll watch it again. Mm-hmm. Noticing different things and trying to go with it. Okay, now that I know what to expect, maybe I can kind of... It would almost... Some people would say it's simping. I'm looking for excuses why this is okay.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That is definitely simping.
Totally.
For sure.
I will not deny that fault. I am a bit of a Marvel fanboy, but I can at least admit when I'm at wrong. That being said, with the Eternals, if you took out the fact that it was Marvel, you took out Thanos and all that stuff, and you just made it a standalone story, it's actually, and the unnecessary love scene where there's no chemistry, if you took that stuff out, it's actually a quite beautiful movie. Very expertly cinematography, like, I care about that stuff, and it's well done. Mm-hmm. And despite the fact that unnecessary romance between the dude from the Game of Thrones and the Asian gal,
and the other one was unnecessary too.
Except they at least had chemistry. Oh, are you talking about with Kit Harington, the Black Knight?
No.
Okay, I'm talking about so Druig and the Deaf Girl. They at least have chemistry.
Yes, I could actually see that.
They at least had chemistry, and honestly, they should have
Let's
ran.
talk about who's the black dude.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
That was...
And I'm not making that face because, gay guys kissing. It was more of like, that was
It was
so
unnecessary.
forced. And
It was
just, it was unrealistic.
That becomes the part where...
See, we would talk about politics.
Stuff that I know, stuff that Disney has gotten its hands on. Like I think I've talked about Disney a lot on this. For some reason, like all the stuff that I like, Disney owns right now. Like I'm waiting for the day where they buy up Dark Horse and they take He-Man and ruin that too. It's not like Kevin Smith is doing a great job with it anyway. You know what I mean? Like they turn Tila into He-Man, and then that first season was god awful. Anyway, I'm dreading like everything I love. Everything I like entertainment wise. Disney takes it and just like bundles it up, spits on it a little bit, and then plasters it on the screen.
So you're going to take this for what you will.
Yep.
This isn't like Star Wars in this sense.
Okay.
I think Disney has more control over Star Wars than they do with Marvel because they have publishing rights for Marvel.
Okay.
They're just a financial backer. So if you want to get mad about politics in Marvel, it's not Disney's fault. That's Kevin Feige.
I don't disagree with that.
I don't disagree with Disney ruining things.
I partially
they ruined Star Wars. So
Oh,
I don't like Star Wars
They've
anymore.
ruined Star Wars for me.
The only thing that came out of Star Wars in the last years is Rogue One. I loved Rogue One. Rogue One is part of the original trilogy for me.
But that was pre-Disney, wasn't it?
Nope.
That was right when Disney
That was after the acquisition.
Wow. Miss Marvel also was... So I actually enjoyed it.
Okay, I was going to say,
I actually
loved it.
And the reason I loved it is because it was like... It was part history lesson.
Yep.
So me and Christina sat on the couch and we're like, what's this partition thing?
Dude, the partition is nuts.
It was nuts. And to set a storyline, the way they did it was really well done. And I didn't hate Miss Marvel. I know there's people out there that are like...
Because it's Muslim or because it's a girl?
No, because people hate Marvel right now.
Okay.
Anything that Marvel puts out, they're just like, Marvel. And so I went into it with low expectations because everything that Marvel has been putting out right now has had that twinge to it where it's like sucky, like a sucky twinge. Is that... I think it's a blasphemous twinge. No. It's like
yes.
There's something there where
there is some heresy
when the show ends, it doesn't feel good. And Miss Marvel, I watched it, and though I didn't like how, because more than making her cosmic, they made her cosmic when it seems like she was more of an Inhuman.
I can answer there's some history there that I can answer that.
Okay.
So, and this is not like common knowledge, so I don't blame you for not knowing this. So, do you know roughly the timeline that the Inhumans were made? Do you remember roughly when the Inhumans popped into the comics?
In the comics, I don't know anything about comics. Okay. I can say when we were introduced, my wife and I, when we were introduced to Inhumans, was the Canadian show that came out.
Yeah. Awful.
Awful. It had potential. It had a really good cast. They didn't handle it well.
No, they did not handle it well.
And then when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Went through the whole Inhumans thing.
So you're coming from strictly cinematic
Strictly cinematic background.
Okay. So the Inhumans comics popped into the scene just after the Fox acquisition of X-Men. So
back in the 90s?
Correct. So when Fox started making X-Men movies, this guy came out on the scene and wanted to make a bunch of characters, and the Marvel CEOs were like, "Yo, like, if we start making characters for X-Men, we're just going to draw more business to them. Let's make our own thing," and that's how the Inhumans were born. So there are so many Inhumans that are just basically mutants.
Yeah,
the Terrigen Mists interacting with Kree blood.
Yeah,
it's just a really weak, like,
mutant
template.
Yeah,
it's just a template.
Yeah. Now that you say that, that makes sense.
So that's why
it would be like a fast forward on a mutation, essentially.
Yeah, it's just a catalyst that triggers it.
Okay.
So that's what makes the end of Miss Marvel so fascinating, is when Totally Not Boy Toy of hers says there's a mutation, and they very subtly play no. Did you catch that?
No.
Okay. I watched that scene like 5 times and drove my wife insane.
Okay.
She's like, "Why are you watching this over and over?"
Which, by the way, your wife is really cool, man. Like, just
Sarah's
hanging out. Yeah,
Sarah's great.
She's an awesome lady.
She is a sweetheart that will throw down, and you will not see it coming.
I can tell. Like,
she has a background with metal and
You would
corn
have to
and all this stuff.
watch where she comes from.
Oh,
Like, you
dude.
got to watch her, like, if you piss her off, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, she will build you up and break you down. As a good wife.
Yes, it's a good wife shit. Miss Marvel, it didn't suck.
Nope.
I still didn't. You still have to explain why they went cosmic as opposed to.
Okay. So the reason why they went cosmic, that one is super easy. I don't fully know. She never was ever cosmic. She was basically a glorified Mr. Fantastic with her abilities.
Right.
And beginning is like her big thing where she just
Right.
kind of stretched Armstrongs herself
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
So I don't mind them going cosmic because I think where they are going with Saga or Phases 4, 5, and 6, which has been confirmed to be called the Multiverse Saga,
Okay.
I think they're building up towards.
Well, but for all intents and purposes, they already have what's her name? America Chavez, and so basically they made
She's
her
not
almost.
cosmic.
She was cosmic.
She was always multiversal.
I mean, are they not? Is that not interchangeable?
No.
Come.
I know.
Come.
This is where you get into pedantic word use within Marvel because they're the ones who create the terms.
Sure.
So-
See, you can never have a canon. I don't even know why you use Marvel canon. Now you're just making up words to suit your own craziness. That's not canon.
Dude, that's just a day in the life for me.
What? Just making up your own words to suit your own needs?
Suit my own needs. Yeah, that's like, this is how I exist. That being... Okay, so...
So you're saying America Chavez is not cosmic? You're saying she's more multiverse than
Because
cosmic.
that's the core of her ability.
Okay.
And that's why she's like, oh, I don't dream, I'm the only one of me, kind of thing. She is an anomaly in the multiverse system, whatever you want to call that.
So then that means what was the company in Loki?
Roxxon. Oh, the TVA.
The TVA. That means they're going to be after her.
No.
Should be if she's an anomaly that exists outside of the multiverse.
But she's not a time anomaly. She's not a variant. She doesn't have variants. She is an anomaly in the sense that within the logic of...
But she can create anomalies.
Yeah.
If she's going to the multiverse, theoretically she could cause anomalies.
Okay, theoretically in that sense, yes. They could basically, just like the 838 universe, they took her, put her into quarantine.
Right.
Whatever diseases, viruses you're bringing.
Right.
If you want to approach it like the CDC, you could totally do that.
Let's not approach anything like the CDC right now.
Hey, at least they're redacting their words and going back to what is actually considered canon for the CDC to... Yeah, sorry. So start all sorts of things.
Oh my god.
So, okay. And this is... We are now getting into territory where my depth of knowledge in comics starts to come to an end.
Sure.
Because I started... Okay, I mentioned earlier, in my 20s, I started going into this grow-up phase.
Right.
That's roughly when America Chavez and the Inhumans kind of step into the scene.
Okay.
So this is where we start getting into theoretical. This is where we start getting into speculation on my end.
Gotcha.
However, a lot of the content I still consume on YouTube kind of helps bridge some of those gaps for me.
Yep.
Because they're pretty unbiased and informative. They don't go hardcore into like, oh, it could be Mephisto and... Like, dude, chill. Like, Mephisto's not going to show up at the beginning of freaking Phase 4 on WandaVision. Sorry.
That would have been sweet, though.
You get into Fonzie jumping the shark territory, though.
I'm just saying, though. It would have been nice.
It would have been nice, but
you already got Quicksilver right there. It would have been an easy...
Do you want me to talk about my theory of things with Scarlet Witch?
It would have been easy.
It would have been easy. What I think they're doing is a convoluted way of being easy.
A convoluted way of being...
An oxymoron. I know what I just said. So, in Multiverse of Madness, they talk about the temple to Chthon, right? The temple where the Darkhold is from.
Okay, yep.
So, Chthon is the elder god that they talked about that came in and created that temple.
Okay.
Chthon in the comics is an entity of pure chaos and uses the Scarlet Witch and her chaos magic as an avatar, as a vessel.
Okay.
So that's why the Darkhold, like, do you ever watch, like, the behind-the-scenes stuff that they do for everything?
Every
Like,
now and then.
so the one for Multiverse of Madness really kind of drew me in because they go into the actual, like, character design behind Wanda's, like, new outfit.
Sure.
Because she's actually wearing the WandaVision outfit, but it's corrupted.
Oh.
Yeah, so all that, like, that darker tinge, that's actually, like...
You did see in WandaVision where, like,
her fingers are
hand
super
turned
black.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which they also did with Agatha. All her fingertips were black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they end up getting these crack nails because of Chthon's corruption and, like, through the Darkhold.
Did you call them crack nails?
Yeah. I was like, wow, that just went, skip a beat. Cool, gonna keep going.
Oh, God.
So, where I think things are going to go with that is, did you watch the most recent Thor? How do we want to...
Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
I have not watched it yet.
Okay,
I'm not sure if I want to. I've heard... And that's what I'm torn, man, because, like, up till now, everything they've done post Endgame. No, post Endgame.
Yep.
Has not been... How do I say...
You used the word connected a few months ago.
It feels very disjointed, for sure. It doesn't feel like it fits within what they've already done.
They have finally come out and said why that is.
Okay.
Phase 4 is about repercussion. It's about reaction. It's about grief.
I'm fine with that.
So where Thor, Love and Thunder kind of comes into that is... I'm not going to say anything major.
Okay. All right.
There are themes that get established, and this is kind of the unfortunate thing with Taika Waititi is, as much as I love his work, it's kind of Marvel has kind of made a mistake with putting too much work into his lap. I'm one of the few people that actually like the first two Thors more than the recent Thors.
Oh,
They're entertaining.
Yeah,
I am
sure.
thoroughly enjoying it. But the depth of care into the Nordic lore in the first two movies is super important to me.
They replaced it. They replaced it with comedy.
And I'm okay with elements of that. Comedy's fine, but it's irreverent comedy.
Yeah.
And when you kind of take irreverent comedy and you bring it into Nordic culture, which in itself kind of has some irreverent mythos behind it, like you read some of the stuff that the Nordic gods did in their own culture, it's a little inappropriate and irreverent.
Oh, for sure.
But that doesn't mean you have to make everything a punchline and gag.
Yeah.
There are themes that are in Love and Thunder that I do think get undercut by Taika Waititi's personality. And I caught them because I care deeply about that kind of stuff. I mean, it's going to sound stupid, but I recently did find out that I'm like 5% like Scandinavian, so I just have a fascination with that stuff now.
Sure.
Because I had no draw, no connection, and I was like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
I can be a part Viking?
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Give me the ale. I don't drink beer.
Out of a horn.
Out of a horn. So, no, I think Love and Thunder has been the first movie in Phase 4, the first show, even, in Phase 4, that made me kind of go like, okay, what was this? It was still entertaining. And it still had connection to things. They're building to something with that. And I'm looking forward to what they're building to. But it was the first one that made me go, I think I see where Shay is coming from in this regard.
Yeah.
I think it deserves this, like, the fact that it's lower on the Rotten Tomatoes. I will...
Really?
It's entertaining. That doesn't make it good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's plenty of entertaining movies that are bad. Street Fighter the movie will hands down be one of the worst movies I've ever watched that I love. So that kind of gives you some credence.
So bad it's good.
So bad it's good.
Yeah, I get that.
So
I get that.
Love and Thunder is not bad. It is still good.
Right.
But as far as its storytelling and the impact it has overall, it has left me kind of wanting, because now I'm connecting things that haven't really been established yet in hopes that there is a connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was trying to get with Chthon, is because in the comics, I'm not going to go too heavy into this because I don't want to spoil anything for you, but Gore the God Butcher in the comics uses a weapon that is made by the god of the symbiotes. The symbiotes, like Venom, Carnage, the symbiotes are still owned by Sony.
So they can't.
They can't really do that.
Yeah.
So you get into things like entities like the Chaos King, Chthon, Mephisto, and what I think the MCU is building towards is, instead of having all these different entities that are kind of synonymous but different, I think they're going to combine them into one. And I think they're just going to be their own single isolated threat. And outside of that, I won't go too much more into Love and Thunder because you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil that for you. But there's stuff that is missing from... there's so much stuff that's in Love and Thunder that you see that if you know, you're like, I know what that is, I know what that is, I know what that is.
Right.
Why is this missing?
Yeah.
And that just further establishes that, like, why I think these things are connected. But I don't have confirmation because they're not saying anything yet because it just came out, maybe.
Sure.
Or...
But here's the thing, so they... I think part of the problem is they have so much material to work with.
Yeah, too much.
But they're trying to, like, pull themes from all the different resets that Marvel has gone through, and so where they have like even with
Golden Age, Silver Age, then they have the Ultimates, then
Civil War was its own thing, and they're trying to take elements from it, and now that Endgame is done, and it feels like when I don't know, are you a sports guy? That was a dog, by the way.
I think that was just a reaction to me shaking my head no.
So, back in the early 2000s, the Sacramento Kings were they were really good.
Basketball.
Okay. Oh, boy.
Sorry, man.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm into a lot of different things.
You're good. It's good to be well-rounded.
But they were really good. They had a really good team. They didn't have a lot of elements missing to make them a complete team. And then they got to the point where they started trading their players away to different teams and stuff like that. And they've kind of sucked ever since.
Well,
and so teams go through like this almost like this great reset. Not the political kind. They almost go through this great reset where...
Hold on, let me reset my microphone.
Where they're like, okay, let's scratch the whole thing and try to start from scratch. I feel like what Marvel had over DC was their ability to tell stories on the screen in the way that DC was never able to capture. Like the fact that Batman and Superman, their moms are both named Martha, should not be the catalyst of why...
Yeah,
okay.
So I will say I haven't seen the Snyderverse cut. I haven't seen the Snyder cut, so I don't know.
Long. I can't sit through
it. I know.
It's crazy.
I eventually
and it's
will.
moody. I don't want to sit through moody.
Oh, dude, I'm moody.
It's...
I may not come off
like
it, but I'm
actually drama.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's the thing.
Yeah.
They've come out with Shang-Chi.
Yep.
They've come out with Eternals.
Mm-hmm.
They came out with now Doctor Strange,
as well as all the Disney Plus shows.
All the Disney Plus shows.
Moon Knight among them.
Doctor Strange was probably the best thing that they've come out with.
I disagree.
Post Endgame,
but fair. That's your opinion. Dude, I love Shang-Chi. I love me a good martial arts film.
Here's the thing. I think my expectations were high.
Yeah.
And they let me down.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, dude, I had no expectations and I was blown away.
No way.
Yeah.
They could have brought in
Iron
Fist
Let's not talk about Iron Fist.
They could. I mean, I'm saying they could have brought in Iron Fist.
So,
and that would have like started this thing where, like, because Marvel now owns all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because now they're going to do stuff. They're going to do weird stuff. Like they're going to bring in Daredevil into She-Hulk.
That's not weird.
But they didn't. But I'm saying they didn't bring Iron Fist into Shang-Chi.
Hold on.
So that's what makes it weird.
Hold on.
And
okay.
like all the New York stuff, all the Defenders,
we're going to get into that then.
All that kind of stuff.
Because that's the conversation my wife and I are going through. I'm rewatching all of them for the first time after years.
The Netflix ones?
Yes. Now that they're on Disney Plus, and
right.
surprisingly unedited. Good Lord, when Frank Castle shotgun blasts a dude in the face, you see it. Yeah, and I'm just, Sarah was like, they can show that on Disney Plus. I'm like, apparently, they just showed it
full blown.
Oh yeah, she loves Frank.
Yeah,
she's like, I hate this guy, I love this guy. I'm like, same.
Which, dude, of the Punishers they've had,
John Bernthal's amazing.
Dude, he's the best one.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I love Tom Jane, but
this one's he's got that like, oh no, you actually do have a screw loose.
They also capture like this is an actual man. Like when you watch Tom Jane, it's like he's
walking through bullets.
He's just walking through bullets.
Yeah.
John Bernthal is getting stabbed repeatedly through a prison scene,
dude, and
somehow surviving,
dude,
drenching in blood,
just off pure anger.
Rage is a hell of an anesthetic.
He is the Marvel Darth Vader.
Oh yeah, dude. The first time he walks into that hospital at the beginning of season 2, Sarah's like got chills seeing the footsteps. She's like, "Is this the Punisher?" I'm like, she's like, she's getting excited. He's like, "I know who this is. I know who this is." So, okay.
But I'm saying like,
we're gonna get into Defenders then.
Yeah.
So the Defenders is kind of a weird subject because around the time of like Marvel starting to grow in popularity, Netflix bought the rights to some things, and that's why we have like the Defenders saga.
Right.
So in that time, things like the Defenders saga, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Peggy Carter, were all considered non-canonical because Marvel wasn't in complete control.
Okay. That seems
it's
like
stupid. It's weak sauce, but it's super stupid. But now that things are being roped back in to as weak as it is to answer part of the Shang-Chi Iron Fist thing, they didn't have that written, like the contract ended before they finished filming.
Then you hold off on releasing it.
Well, and then so this is where you can blame cancel culture for this. So a lot of people did not like Iron Fist because not a lot of people know who Danny Rand is, and they just saw, why is this white dude doing martial arts when it could clearly be, like you have Culling Wing and all that stuff. It could clearly be like an Asian guy doing this, and that's just the ignorance of stupid people.
Yeah, that's not who Iron Fist was.
Never was.
So
it doesn't also help that the guy that they cast didn't actually do a lick of martial arts training. It didn't help that he did not have delivery. He's a Kristen Stewart of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh crap!
I'm sorry. I was just as excited about the announcement of Iron Fist and that there was going to be freaking Wu-Tang Clan as the soundtrack.
Oh man,
to all the fight scenes. I love me some Wu-Tang martial arts, dude.
Yeah.
I grew up with like the fighting game.
Oh yeah. I remember.
You know what I mean?
That was Super NES, right?
No, PlayStation.
Was it on PlayStation?
Yeah,
PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
So
I grew up with that.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm not a big, huge like hardcore rap guy, but you can't deny good martial arts has to have a good rap beat behind it.
Yeah, for
the throwdown hits so much harder when the beat is lined up with every punch and kick and throw.
And it did that in Iron Fist.
The fight choreography was actually kind of lazy in the first season.
I will give you that.
Season 1 was pretty rough.
I will give you that.
The reason why Season 2 is regarded so much better is because it was actually kind of focused on Colleen, who at least cared about... The actress actually cared about what she was doing. So...
I'll give you that.
The tie... And this is where things get interesting. Reportedly, the actress that played Colleen was rumored to have actually was supposed to show up as a post-credit Easter egg. But the reason why she didn't is she was currently filming a different show at the time.
If they had just flown her out for a day,
totally
shot that scene,
totally,
I would not have been mad at Shane. Other than I wouldn't have been mad at Shang-Chi other than as soon as he gets the rings, he knows how to use them. He went through no character development in that movie.
That's why he fought Michelle Yeoh.
They did.
I know I'm going to make you angry with that. That was intentional.
So bad.
Yeah, but that's typical martial arts, though. Watch typical martial arts movies. They don't go into a lot of character development.
Even Bruce Lee failed.
Yeah. I saw Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi never failed. He never failed in the whole movie. He knew how to do everything.
His mom die.
He knew how to do everything right off the bat, including using magical rings that he's never laid hands on.
I mean, he looked at least a little flabbergasted by it.
For like 0.2 seconds. And then
was
like,
when Wu was throwing punches and kicks in his face.
Watch out. Like, he knew how to do everything.
Dude, that actor rocked that role. I love.
I think they did the perfect cast for it.
Dude.
Don't get me wrong. Like I liked everything except.
Did you not like Aquafina either?
What's that?
Did you not like Aquafina either?
I didn't mind her.
I actually loved her.
I like her.
That's not a comic book character.
I like her. So
everything she's been a great actress.
People trip out that she talks like she's got like a black accent or whatever like that. And
no, she's from New York. That's why she talks
I'm okay
like
with that. Yeah. Like if you talk to New York people, that's the way they roll. And so, like, especially if you're from anywhere around, like, Brooklyn or the Bronx or anything like that.
She has a really large mouth. Like, the jaw thing kind of freaks me out. Sorry.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the storytelling in this phase has been subpar. So they've got major potential. The Eternals, for what it could have been.
The Eternals, I think, is still the weakest of all of them.
It was the weakest.
And that's including the shows. So I would give the Eternals a C-.
I would give it a D.
D still get degrees, unfortunately.
Barely. You're not getting into any other college.
You might get into, like, Arizona State.
You might get into community college, maybe.
Arizona State. Or Chico.
Dang.
That all being said, okay, like, I don't disagree. The quality has been kind of low, and I think this is where you begin to see some of the wrinkles, right? Anytime you have a long-running series, you know what I mean? Like, let's look at The Walking Dead, and it's like 20-plus seasons now of side story after side story after side story that no one actually cares about anymore.
Sure.
And I don't even care about The Walking Dead. I don't do zombie stuff. Like, it's just lame to me.
Yeah.
But anytime you have a show that's going on a little too long in the tooth, there's going to be some wrinkles. And I think what's happening right now with Marvel is they're trying to distance themselves from just being superhero films. That's why we're seeing people like Martin Scorsese get so ticked off that, like, his 3.5-hour mafia drama, which was amazing, didn't draw as much interest with the general public because Shang-Chi did, right? And I'm probably mixing up the timeline of what movie was out during The Irishman. But the point is, I think Marvel is wanting to get into genres. That's why, okay, so like She-Hulk is being advertised as like an Ally McBeal with superpowers.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why it's getting that kind of tone, and I'm kind of for it.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are kind of upset that, like, okay, Charlie Cox is reprising his role, but they're putting him in a comedy. Like, they must not have paid attention to the Defenders show because there's some funny lines.
There's some funny lines in there.
It's like, you know, Jessica Jones saying "You look like an asshole." It's like, it's your scarf. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's always been quick-witted. He's not like Peter Parker quick-witted.
Sure.
But he knows how to chirp off and be funny.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing one. I love Daredevil. Daredevil has been one of my favorite characters in comics, and now as an adult, as a Christian.
Way better than the Ben Affleck Daredevil.
We're not even gonna talk about that. How dare you? I'm so offended.
You should be.
That putting Wilson Fisk as Michael Clark Duncan. Michael Clark Duncan is such a better actor.
I liked that. I don't like race swaps like that, but that was one that I was okay with.
He stole the show, but it was still like, oh, Michael Clark Duncan. This is one of the last things you're going to be known for, dude. Not the Green Mile.
I never saw the Green Mile.
Dude, it's good.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'll forgive you. Anyways, so there's an interesting little tidbit to like a little of history of me is before I became a Christian, Frank Castle was like my hero. He's the hero I identified with.
Sure.
When I became a Christian, it kind of turned into Matt Murdock. And so that season of Daredevil season 2, with them on like the roof arguing, is like my inner monologue. Whenever I'm in whatever like mood I'm in.
Yeah.
Is because any given day, I have my days where I hate evil so much I want to do something about it. But then I have to remember that everyone is still alive. There's still a chance for redemption. There's still a chance that these people can be turned around if someone just talks to them, gives them a chance to build up. And then that whole entire dog of like, oh, you're so naive, and just kill them. I put them down, they don't get back up. That whole entire exchange, I love that conversation. That whole argument was like great cinema, great TV. So, and this is going to kind of go back a little bit to Miss Marvel. The reason why I liked Miss Marvel wasn't just the history stuff with the Pakistani and the partition. The thing that kind of blew my mind about it was there are now 2 heroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that have a religious leader as a source of wisdom. Matt Murdock, he goes to his pastor. He goes to his bishop, priest, whatever. Yeah. And now Miss Marvel, however you want to handle the Muslim thing, the Islam thing, she still went to him and he gave very sagely wisdom.
Sure. And
that is something that is so lacking in our world, especially in a Western culture, America right now. When you have textbooks that are being, like, denied by Florida, thankfully, because their math problems are talking about how Christians are racist. Like, there's so much effort going into, like, this new movement of, like, millennials and younger on, what's the term that they're using? It's like rejection theory or something.
Oh, deconstructing.
Deconstruction theory. Yeah. And, like, well, all deconstruction theory is an inability to doubt your own doubts. It's an inability to have a conversation with someone other than yourself. Like, I've heard some, like, Rhett and Link and all these people, these big YouTubers that are like, I used to be a Christian and now I'm not.
Right.
It's like, well, you did all the work to research things, but you didn't have a conversation with anyone of consequence over your spiritual walk. If I fall away from Christ, it's on me because I didn't talk to you or Seth or Sean or any other spiritual leader that is a huge, close influence and mentor and friend.
Sure.
If I walk away, it's because I chose to not say anything. And that's kind of what the core of deconstruction theory is.
Sure.
Is it's people not doubting their doubts, and it's people not knowing how to have a conversation that's uncomfortable. And that's just like the freaking feeling of the day with America right now, is no one wants to just have an uncomfortable conversation. Like, one of the first conversations I had with you, and the first time we actually talked, was me talking to you about, like, hey, what's it like being black, basically?
Sure.
And, like, what has it been like being a black Republican? And just all the...
Whoa. Not a Republican.
Conservative.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a huge difference.
Huge difference. You're right.
Difference.
I know better than that. Independent constitutionalist. No one cares about third parties.
No,
so.
They don't. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm in the same boat.
At least I'm no longer libertarian. I learned my lesson. Sorry, I'm not civil libertarian. I'm still federal, like Jefferson.
Oh, man. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, we don't need to have the conversation.
Okay.
We'll spare your listeners.
Oh, boy.
Because that's going to get boring.
No way, dude.
Politics gets kind of boring now.
Oh.
Because at the end of the day, people aren't willing to... What was... I know you've been in a few podcasts with Seth and Sean, but there's a new N-word out there. That's nuance.
I hate that word.
Nuance?
Yeah.
Why?
I think the way people are using it, they're using it as an excuse to not have anything definite. So as you're talking to a person,
yeah,
they're like,
what works for you?
Oh, that's nuanced.
Yeah. No. So
And I had a couple of pastors hit me with it where I'm like, because quite honestly, I think there is a fundamental difference between the gospel and the implications of the gospel.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But they say that they use that word nuanced when you start talking about actual issues that need to be affected by the gospel.
Right.
They'll say, well, that's a nuanced position. And
You want to give an example?
So, I don't want to name drop or anything, so I'm trying to. I was building a sermon, and I was throwing it around with a couple of the pastors, and as I got into the habit when I was preaching that not only should my main point be about Christ, but all of my subpoints should also point to the cross. And so it's not just a gospel presentation at the end. Yeah. It's actually every point is built on the gospel.
You're not delivering a TED Talk or keynote speak. You're actually preaching. You're
preaching. And so it has to be saturated with the cross, right?
Completely agree.
And so somebody dropped that nuanced word on me because they were like, well, this isn't the gospel. This is like an implication of the gospel. And I'm like, well, no, this has gospel implications. They're like, well, it's a little bit more nuanced. And
when people use it like that, they're being condescending because
super. And that's the only
that is not how I'm choosing to use
way that I've heard it. That's
fair. So nuanced is not that condescending. Nuanced is literally you literally have to kind of put things through a sieve to find difference.
I totally get what the word nuanced means. Like
but that's how it's supposed to be treated. It's not. It's not supposed to be a condescending. It's like, oh, that's nuanced.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, okay, ain't that sweet? You're getting into like Southern Belle territory.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. Or telling someone that they're
which is a real thing in the South, by the way. Like,
yes, it is. I went to a Southern wedding.
If you ever go to the South and some old white lady says, "Oh, bless your heart,"
she's not complimenting you.
She just dogged you.
Oh yeah, you have been excommunicated from her social group.
Real quick, I am going to point us down the Emmaus road real fast, but I want to do a quick part 2 if you have time.
Sure.
All right. As we're talking about Marvel, what is it that you think the Marvel meta-narrative?
Okay.
What is it that you think the Marvel meta-narrative is saying, and how does that relate to Christ?
So that's where it gets real iffy.
Let's just stick to the movies, and we'll go comic books in part 2.
I'm not even going to do the comic books on this. So with just the movies, the current narrative, because it's been about grief, there's a lot of different ways of handling it, and none of them really have a satisfying conclusion. What I've been seeing with WandaVision and Loki and all these like reactions, like from Loki seeing that, oh crap, I die, and all this stuff is there's grief, but it's mismanagement of grief. It's showing all the flawed ways to handle grief. And I don't think it's an intentional thing. I think it's just the natural way of man, finite man, secular man writing. I'm like, well, this is how I know how to handle grief, so this is what I'm going to write. Write what you know.
Even Thor chopping off Thanos' head.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to that.
That was him realizing.
That's the dogs again.
He should have gone for the head.
He should have gone for that.
When it comes to grief, especially Christian grief, holy grief. I mean, you have things like in Proverbs 31, get to the man who's weeping strong drink, right? But that doesn't mean let him become a drunkard. That means come alongside with him, spend time with him, weep with him. That's what we see in Job, is that they should have just kept their mouth shut and wept with him. And let him feel what he's feeling. I don't want to go down an accidental Stranger Things thing that just popped in my head. Thank you, Kate Bush. But, sorry, man. I've been listening to so many covers of Kate Bush lately. Running Up the Hill. Whole another tangent. You want to feel what I'm feeling?
Okay. All right.
You want to know? No, that doesn't hurt me. No, I think I can't even say it with a straight face. So I think when it comes to grief in a Christian way, is what we're seeing with the Marvel movies is the grief spurs them to action, but it's flawed action. It's reactionary, right?
Sure.
As Christians, when we're allowed to grieve. Jesus wept.
Sure.
Right? But his grief doesn't spur him to reaction. It just spurs him to take action. To, like, okay, this person died. I feel remorse and sorrow. I'm going to heal him. Right?
Okay.
So that's a super extreme, but what do? Okay, I lose someone close to me. My dad died, and I had people come and be by my side because I didn't know how to process with my grief.
Sure.
Because although I was close to my father, I never actually had a relationship with my father as my father. So they helped me mourn the loss of a father. What it meant to not, like, the fact that I didn't have that.
Sure.
And they just let me sit in it. They let me grow in it, foster, nurture, and come out of it in Christ. And I think in that, I grew as a Christian. I grew in Christ. I grew in my identity and who I am and what his view of me is.
So you're saying, like, the Marvel movies is a reflection of all the ways we mismanage grief.
Yes.
And Christ actually shows us the proper way
100%.
to manage grief. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because grief is a real thing. Grief is something that people don't know how to talk about. Grief is something that people still don't know how to feel. I mean, like, we still have to have conversations about, like, hey, man, it's okay to cry to another man.
Yeah.
You know, because we've gotten through this season of, like machismo and, like, I don't remember his name, but an actor that was super prominent in, like, Western films. Like, just...
John Wayne.
John Wayne, thank you. Like, we grew up in America with this mentality of, like, real men don't cry.
Sure.
When that's not true. The realest men of men
cried hard.
Not cried, wept.
Yeah.
Like,
Uncontrollable sob.
Like, ugly face.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
So that should cause us to pause and reflect.
What you're saying is deep too, because grief is not just like when you lose somebody.
No,
it's not just an extreme case. Losing a job,
dude,
or changing jobs,
ending a relationship,
ending a friendship. We just recently lost a friendship, man, that it came out of nowhere. And we've honestly been, like, grieving, like, keeping us up in that kind of thing. And I don't think we identify it as grief. And so, of course, we handle it Clint
Eastwood?
No. Like Clint, Hawkeye.
Clint Barton.
We handle like him. We stuff it way down, and then it just explodes in uncontrollable ways.
Right.
Next thing you know, we have a totally different identity from who we're supposed to be.
Right.
Because we mismanaged our grief.
And you're killing the Yakuza in the middle of Hong Kong. Or whatever.
Or Doctor Strange. Spider-Man. How Spider-Man came through, and he's grieving the loss of having a secret identity. So much so that he goes to Doctor Strange to try to undo some stuff, but he has more grief about the fact that people won't remember who he actually is, and so it causes all. That's deep, man. I mean, like, grief actually, I think in a very real way, grief manipulates even our relationship with Christ.
Yep.
To the point where we will stop running to Him.
Oh, 100%.
In the midst of our troubles. Like,
people will straight up fall away and walk away because they don't know.
Like we become in love with it. We become in love with our grief.
Yeah, we kind of hold on to it.
As opposed to being in love with Christ.
Yeah. Or instead of that, some people actually incorrectly turn to Christ as like you're the culprit, you're the source of my grief.
Right. Yeah.
And
For sure.
they correctly say you're the reason, you're in control of this, but they don't go, why did you let this happen? It's like you let this, you forced this to happen. They kind of forget the fact that like he doesn't cause sin, he allows it, and it's for his good. And as painful as it is that I lost my dad, there's some good that came out of it. There are women out there who I am heartbroken for whatever situation they've been through, whether it's rape or a miscarriage. But there is good that they don't recognize until years later that is born of this situation. The depth of growth that they had in their relationship with Christ fostered something.
Yeah.
And it's painful. And it's not my place to even come close to saying, like, I can relate, because I can't. But I've felt a depth of grief before. And I've felt a depth of grief that pales in comparison to the depth of grief that Christ felt
No doubt.
when he was on the cross saying, Father, Father, why have you forsaken me?
Oof.
And if he can go through that and still stand before the throne, basically, and still be beloved,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
how much more can we in him,
I don't
through
even think
him?
I've ever thought about that. Jesus says, why have you forsaken me? He could have gone to the throne of God and asked him that directly.
Yep. And in a way he was, because the
Yeah.
cross was his throne in that moment.
Good gracious. I'm just thinking
I
like
can do
so,
a Jesus joke here or there.
I caught it. I'm just thinking like, so you have this vision in Daniel where Jesus is walking back into the throne room of God. He could have stopped at the threshold and said, hey man, what's your problem?
Yep.
And he walks in. What I'm thinking through is Jesus' example of what it looks like to be a real man still takes ultimate betrayal and still says, but I'm going to retain the relationship.
Yep.
Yo, I got to wrap this up real quick. Hang in there, because we're going to be coming back with part 2. We're probably going to take a potty break. But it's going to be like a whole week until y'all see this next one. So never mind potty break. I hope y'all come back for part 2. Me and Troy are hanging out, talking about all kind of stuff, man. And, man, to the glory of God,
Amen.
we have to see Jesus, even in the meta narratives of something as simple as Marvel.
Yep.
We have to see what it's saying about our human condition and how Christ is the remedy to all things. And so that's where we're going to leave it. Hope y'all enjoyed the conversation. Y'all make sure to, like I said before, like, share, subscribe if you're over on YouTube. Make sure to keep listening and subscribe if you're over on the podcast. Drop your boys some words of encouragement. The email's down in the description. Until next time, y'all. Love y'all. Grace and peace.